Hello guys, and welcome to another HTML, CSS and JavaScript project tutorial. Now in this video we are going to build a fully responsive personal portfolio website using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Now this website is going to be fully functional. We are going to have a services section, a portfolio section with our projects, a contact section that is fully functional, and that means people can actually message you through the contact form on this website, and you're going to receive the messages in your email. And I'm going to teach you all that in this video. Throughout this video, we are going to learn how to use BEM, that is block element modifier, for our classes. We are going to use CSS variables so that we can easily customize our websites. We are going to use CSS grid and flexbox to easily align our elements on the page. We are going to use CSS units like rem, viewport height, viewport width, and percentages to easily help us achieve our responsiveness. We are going to have a fully functioning contact form to receive messages in our email so that people can easily message us through our website. And finally, we are going to use CSS media queries to make our website fully responsive. These are all the things that you are going to learn in this video. Now let me quickly walk you through the finished project. Now here on the desktop version of the website, we have our navbar, which is transparent by default, but on scroll we are going to have it change color. Okay, so on scroll we are going to have the background change to black, and the nav items together with the logo are going to be white. Okay, so that we have some contrast there. Now on the navbar we have our logo, we have our nav items, we have home, services, portfolio, and contacts, which will take us to the various sections of the page. We have our download CV. Okay, so people can actually download our resume, our clients can download our resume. We have our title here, we have our subtitle, and we have get in touch. Okay, so this is going to take us to our contact section. All right, let's go back up. We have this image here, that is our hero image, our profile image, and then we have social media links. Okay, so we have Instagram, Dribble, and then Behance. Now let's go down. We have some companies here that we've worked with in the past. We have this services section, which shows the various services that we offer. We have our portfolio section. So this portfolio section has some of the projects that we've worked on. Notice the animation on hover. Okay, so these are actually some of the websites that we recently created on this channel. Okay, so you can actually check out the tutorials for these, and for each project we can actually check out the GitHub for the project, or we can see a live demo of the website. Okay, so you would link the GitHub and then the live demo of the projects that you've worked on. Right, from the project section or the portfolio section, we have this testimonial section here with this cool hover effects. And then finally we have this contact section. Okay, so we have our socials here again, and then we have this contact form which actually works. Okay, so here I can enter my name, I'm going to enter my email, and then my message. Okay, so let me just enter a random message here, and then let's submit this message. All right, so here I have to pass this Google reCAPTCHA, which is actually good. I'm going to show you how to do that as well so that you can prevent spam. Pass this and verify, and our message has been sent. Okay, so right here, let me go into my email. Let me refresh my email. Let me refresh, and then I have a new message from my portfolio form. Okay, so this is the name that we entered on the website, this is the email, this is the message that we entered, and everything works perfectly. Okay, everything works as it should. All right, so now let's see the responsiveness of the website. So this is how the website is going to look on mobile. As you can see, it is looking great. Everything is working perfectly as it showed. We have our cool animations here. Here in the testimonial section, notice we have this cool hover effects as well. And our contact section also looks great. Okay. All right, now let's check out the responsiveness on tablets. Okay, so this is how our website is going to look on tablets. We have our header here, we have our nav bar with this cool animation. And everything we are going to create on this website is going to be custom. Okay, so we are going to create our animations by ourselves and everything. Okay, so we are going to do everything by ourselves. All right, so this is what we are going to create in this video, and we have a lot to do, so let's get started. Now here in my project directory, I have this images folder here, which contains the images that we are going to use throughout the video, throughout this project. And a link to this images with a live demo of the website is going to be in the description, and that is going to be for my Patreons. Okay, so if you think I deserve some support for these tutorials and the projects that I bring you, then consider becoming a Patreon so that you keep supporting me. Now we are going to create our index HTML file. Let's create our style sheet, our CSS, and then we are going to write some JavaScript as well. So let's create our JavaScript file here. Okay, and I'm going to open this project in my text editor. I'm going to use VS Code, so I'm going to click and then open with VS Code. So here in VS Code, I have my project here. These are the files we just created, but I'm going to use some extensions. Okay, so here I'm going to use preview on web server. Okay, so this is an extension you should have. I think live server is on Atom, so if you are using a different text editor, you should search live server or preview on web server. Either should work for this. And what it's going to do is preview our project inside our default browser. Okay, so that whenever we save, it is automatically going to refresh. Now the second extension that I'm going to use here is Emmet. Emmet actually comes with VS Code, so we are not going to install that. All right, so let's open our index HTML file. That is where we are going to start. And with Emmet, I'm going to do exclamation tab, and that is going to give me this boilerplate. And the title for this is going to be responsive personal portfolio website. And down here, let's link our style sheet. So that is style.css. Now let's open this project in our default browser. So you right click and then you preview or launch on browser. Okay. All right, let me put this side by side so that we see everything that goes on live. All right, now as usual, we are going to start with our navbar. Okay, so let's start with our navbar. Our navbar is going to be inside the nav tag, and inside we are going to wrap everything inside a div with a class of container. That is going to be a general class. So some sections are also going to have this same class, which is the container class, but we should have another class of nav container, okay, which is actually going to be specific to this nav bar. All right, so we have that. Now let's have our logo. Okay, so our logo is going to be inside an anchor tag. We want it to be a link, and let's give it a class of nav logo. let's wrap it inside an H3, and we are just going to say logo. That is what the logo is going to say. All right, now we are going to have our nav links, our nav items, and that is going to be an added list. Let's give this a class of nav menu, and each li, which is the list items, are going to be links so that we can click on them. The first one is going to be home. It is going to go to the home page. That is the index HTML. The next is going to be services. We are going to have portfolio and then contacts. So let me make this capital. Let me duplicate this a few times. The next is going to be the services section. Okay, so this is not going to go to a different page. It's going to be a different section on the same home page. So this is going to go to services, and it's going to say services. The next one is going to go to portfolio, and then the last one is going to go to the contact section. Okay, so contact. All right, so that is the nav menu or the nav items. Now the last thing we are going to have here is our download CV. Okay, so we are going to have a link here to download our CV. So this is going to go to the images folder, and let me quickly show you. I have a PDF here. Okay, so this is the CV that we are going to download. So let's link that. So inside our images folder, we are going to get the CV. Okay, cv.pdf, and that is what we are going to download. Let's give this a class. We are going to make that a button. So we are going to give this a class of btn and btn primary. Now for it to actually download, for us to click on it to download the CV or the resume, we should add a download attribute, and it is going to say download CV. Okay, that is what it's going to say. Now in the finished project, we had an icon, okay, a download icon. So let me go to Iconscout. That is the icon resource that we are going to use. And actually, let me grab the Iconscout CDN from here. I'm going to grab the CDN. Let's go to the head of the page, and down here I'm going to paste the Iconscout CDN. Okay, let me leave a comment there and then paste the CDN that I just copied. Now I'm going to leave a comment here for the style sheet as well. Let's keep this project commented. All right, so let me go to the Iconscout page again. And here I'm going to search download. All right, so this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to copy, and right here before the download CV, I'm going to paste the icon I just copied. Okay, so let's see if we have it. All right, so we have that download icon. Actually, this should be one of these items. Okay, so let me duplicate this list item. This is one of the list items. All right, now the last thing we are going to have is, notice we have this icon. Okay, we have the hamburger icon and then the close icon on mobile. Okay, so that is what we are going to have last. That is the last thing we are going to have in the navbar. So let's go back to, actually let's put that inside a button tag, and let's give this an ID. Okay, the first one is going to be the hamburger icon, so we are going to give that an ID of open menu btn. Okay, now that is going to be an icon. So let's go back to Iconscout and then search menu. That is the bars icon. Let's grab that and then paste it inside this. Let me save and see whether we have it. So we have that. Now let's get the close icon as well. Let's search close and get this multiply icon. Let's get that. Now I'm going to duplicate this change the ID to close menu btn, and then replace this I tag with the close icon we just copied. Now let's check out the project, and we have it. Okay, so our navbar markup is done. Okay, now let's go to our CSS and give our navbar some styling. Let me put this side by side. I want us to view everything live, to see everything happening live. Okay, now here in the CSS, the first thing we are going to do is make sure we are starting the page on a clean sheet. Okay, so notice we have some margins here. We have these underlines, these bullets with the list items and all that. We are going to remove them. Okay, so we are going to start off on a clean sheet. Now for every element, we are going to remove the margin. Okay, let's remove the padding as well. Let's set everything to 0. The border for every element is going to be 0 as well, and then the outline is going to be 0. Now let's remove the underlines for the anchor tags or the links. So that is going to be the text decoration. Let's set that to none. And then let's set the box sizing to be border box. Okay, and that is all we have to do here. Now we are going to use CSS variables as I said earlier. Okay, so we are going to set some root variables here, and for this root variable we are going to be able to use them throughout this project. Okay, so anywhere in the folder we can access these root variables. So to declare a CSS variable, you are going to have two hyphens, the name of the variable. So this I'm going to call color primary, and then the value. Okay, so this color is going to have a hex code of 7562E0. So that is going to be the color for my primary. That is going to be my primary color. All right, and I have some variables that I'm going to use, and I'm not going to waste time typing them out. So I'm going to paste them. Let me save, and these are the variables that we are going to use throughout the video. We have some variables for the colors. We have color primary, we have primary variant, we have white, we have light, we have black, and then dark. Okay, so these are the various values for the different colors that we have. And here we have some variables for the container width. Okay, so the general container class that we gave to this div, that is the direct child of this now, is going to have different width depending on the screen size that we are viewing our website on. Okay, so you're going to understand this when we get to the media queries. Now let's proceed, and then let me give a smooth scroll to the HTML element. Okay, so that when we click, let me quickly show you that. All right, so when we click, it will take us smoothly to the section that we want to go. Okay, that is the function of the smooth scroll, or the scroll behavior that we have here. So the scroll behavior here is going to be set to smooth. All right, now let's move on to the body. I'm going to have some styles for the body. First of all, let's change the font size that we have here. Okay, we are going to use a different font. So let's quickly go to Google Fonts. Let's grab some fonts from Google Fonts, and we are going to use Poppins for this. Okay, I'm going to search Poppins, and there's the font that we are going to use. So here I'm going to choose from the weight of 300. I'm going to choose that. I'm going to choose the regular, which is the 400 font weight. I'm going to choose medium, semi bold. Let me grab everything here, okay, except the italic ones. And here I'm going to copy. You can copy and then paste it inside your HTML head, or you can import it inside your style sheet. Okay, but I prefer the HTML, so I'm just going to copy this, copy, and then go back to my HTML file. Let me paste. All right, so now we can use this font in our project. Okay, we can go back and then copy this. Okay, so the font family for our body is going to be Poppins. Okay, so Poppins sans serif. Poppins is a sans serif font, so this is just a backup. All right, so we have our Poppins font working. Now let's change the font weight for the fonts. Okay, so the font weight is going to be 300, which is light. The color is going to be the color dark that we have. That is the variable we set here, which is 4B4A53. Okay, so this is how you use CSS variables. All right, so let's give the line height for our fonts to be, let's make them 1.7. Before we even proceed to styling our navbar, we are going to have some general styling. H4 and then H5. Okay, let's give them a color of color black. That is the variable color black here. All right, so all these are going to have color black. Okay, now let's select them individually and then change the font sizes. Let's give them different font sizes. So the font size for H1 is going to be 4.4 rem, and then let's give that a line height of 1.1. So every H1 in this project is going to have this style. Now the H2 is going to have font size of 2 rem. Every H3 is going to have a font size of 1.6 rem. Every H4 is going to have a font size of 1.4 rem. And then lastly, every H5 is going to have a font size of 1 rem. Now we are going to have a lead class, and this class is going to be for some paragraph that we have. Okay, so some paragraphs like this is going to have a class of lead. Okay, so that is why we are going to have this class. So let's quickly style that. Let's give that a width of 63%, a line height of 1.5, and then a margin of 0 auto 3 rem. So 0, this should be margin. So it's going to be 0 for the top, auto for the left and right, and then 3 rem for the bottom. Okay, every image is going to have a width of 100%, which is going to be 100% of its parents. Okay, every image is going to be 100% of its parents. Let's set the object fit to cover. As I said, we are going to have a general container class for the different sections of the page. So any elements with a class of container is going to have a width of the variable container width that we have up top, which is this, which is 82%. That is the width for desktop. Okay, when we reach media queries, or when we get to the media queries, we are going to use this for tablets and then this for mobile phones. Okay, so that is why we have that variable there, container width LG for large. Let's give it a maximum width 1800 pixels, and then a margin of 0 auto to center it horizontally. All right, so that is for the container class. Let's move on and then style every section. Let's give every section a padding of 6 rem for the top and bottom, and then 0 for the left and right, and a margin of 5 rem for the top and bottom, and then 0 for the left and right. Okay, now we are going to have some classes for, I think, let me see, did I give this a class of, okay, so I gave this a class of BTN and then BTN primary. Every BTN class is going to have a background of color black, a color, that is the text color, is going to be color white. Let's display inline block, and then the width is going to be fit content. Okay, so it's going to be exactly the width of its content, and then let's give it some padding. Okay, so let's have some space around it, which is going to be 0.8 rem for the top and bottom, and then 1.6 rem for the left and right, a border of 1 pixel solid, and it is going to be transparent for now, but on hover we are going to change the color. Okay, so let's see, let's give it a cursor of pointer. We want it to look clickable. Now on hover, okay, so btn hover, so this is our button. Now on hover we want to have some styling. Okay, so let's give this a background of color light, and let's change the text color to color black. Now notice how sharp the change is. Okay, I don't want it to be that sharp. I'm going to smoothen the transition. Okay, so the transition here is going to be all 400 milliseconds ease, so that we have a smooth hover effect. All right, so that is for the btn. Now notice we have another class called btn primary. Okay, so let's style that as well. So the background for this is going to be color primary, and then the text color is going to be color white. Okay, now let's have a different hover effect for this as well. And on hover, and the reason why this is changing is because it has both classes. Okay, it has the btn and then the btn primary class. So this what is kicking in right now. So here on hover we want to give it a border color. Okay, we want to change, it has a border already of 1 pixel solid. So here we are going to change the border color. So the border color here is going to be the color primary, and then the background is going to be light. It's already light here. So actually let's do it. So the background color is going to be color light, and then the color itself, that is the text color, is going to be color primary as well. Okay, so on hover for primary or the btn primary, this is what we get. Now I want to have a last class which is going to be a btn lg. Okay, and that is going to be for the contact us or get in touch button that we have on the header section or the hero section. Okay, so this is going to have a padding 1.1 rem for the top and bottom, and then 2 rem for the left and right, and then the font size for this is going to be 1.2 rem. All right, so these are the classes that we need for this project. Okay, and these are very necessary because we won't be repeating ourselves. Now let's move on to the navbar. Let's move on to style our navbar. So here let me leave a comment. Let's target our nav tag. Okay, so here let's first give it a width of 100 viewport width, and 100 viewport width means it should span the entire screen. Okay, the entire width of the screen. Okay, so if let me give it a background so that you know what I'm talking about. Let's give it a background of red. Okay, so 100 viewport width means 100% of the screen. Okay, so no matter how small or big the screen is, it's going to span the entire screen. So if I should say 10 viewport width, it is going to span only 10% of the width of the screen. Okay, so that is viewport width, and this is also a css unit. Okay, this red is just for you to understand what is going on. Now we are going to give it a height of 5 rem as well. Actually, let me keep the background, let me make it red so that you see what is going on. And rem means the root element. Okay, the root element is 16 pixels by default. Okay, the root element, which is the HTML element, is 16 pixels by default. So 5 rem here means 5 times 16. So here if we should do 80 pixels, which is 5 times 16, it should give us the same answer, which is the 5 rem. Okay, so 80 pixels here, which is 5 times 16, should be the same as 5 rem. Okay, so that is the root element, and now I can remove this red. Okay, all right, so the height for this navbar is going to be 5 rem. Now let's display this grid, and then with grid I can place items, okay, to the center, and that is going to place the direct child, which is this container class. Let me show you. So inside the nav, we have this direct child, which is the container. Is going to be placed directly in the middle of the navbar. So it's going to be vertically and horizontally centered inside the navbar. Now let's position this fixed, and this is going to make sure it is always on the page. It is always fixed on the page, and let's give it a z index of 2. Okay, a z index of 2, and that is going to make sure it is always on top of every element on the page. All right, now let's move on and then give every link inside of this a color black. Let's give them a font size of 0.9 rem. We are going to have some hover effect, so let's give them a transition, okay, to smoothen the hover effect. So a transition of all 400 milliseconds for the duration of the transition, and then ease for the animation or the transition timing function. Okay, we are going to have that hover effect. So on hover, we want to change the color for the links to color primary, and notice we have the color primary for the nav links on hover. Now let's move on and then target the nav container class. Let's give it a display of flex. Let's display this flex and then justify content to be spaced between and align items to the center. And we are not going to need these two buttons. Okay, we are not going to need these two buttons on the desktop version of this website. So here, let's remove those buttons. So these buttons, we are going to display none. Let me leave a comment here. So it is only going to be available on tablets and phones. Now let's move on and then style this nav items. So nav, remember we gave it a class of nav menu, and here we are going to display flex. Let's justify content to be spaced between and align items to the center. Okay, that is vertical alignment, and let's give some space between them. So let's give it a gap of 1. Let's actually make this 4 rem. All right, so this is what we have, and that is all for our nav bar. Okay, that is all for our nav bar. The scroll behavior here that we have is going to be done using JavaScript. Okay, so we are going to achieve this with JavaScript, and that is going to be getting to the end of the video. All right, so that is all for the nav bar. Now let's move on to the header section. Okay, let's move on to this hero section or the header section right here. So let's go to our markup. Let me leave a comment at the end of this nav bar. Come on. Now let me quickly show you. This header section or this hero section is going to be inside a tag of header. Okay, and the direct child of this is going to be that general container class, which is going to help center this horizontally. As you can see, the margin that we have on the left and then the right side is because of the general container class. And inside of it, we are going to have a left side, which is going to be this content, and then we are going to have the right side. Okay, and that is going to be this image and then the socials that we have here. All right, so let's go back to the markup, and we are going to have that header tag. As I said, we are going to have that general container class and a header container class as well. And these underscores that I'm using here is a conversion in BEM. Okay, so that we can specifically target any elements without having to go through the parent. Okay, without having to nest elements. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense. All right, so if you want to target this, we can just do header underscore container. All right, so inside this we are going to have the left, and then so that is going to be header underscore left and header underscore right. Okay, so that is going to be header right. So for the left side, let's target the left side first. For the left side, we are going to have an H3, and that is going to say hello there, I am. And then an H1, which is going to say Michael, a BR tag, and then Thompson, Michael Thompson. Okay, and then a paragraph. We are going to have a paragraph under the H1. And lastly, we are going to have a button to link to the contact form. Okay, so here we are going to have an anchor tag, and it is going to link to the contact section of the page. Let's give that a class of BTN and BTN primary. And also let's give it a last class of BTN LG, okay, to make it larger. And that is going to say get in touch. So that is our button. And now we are done with the left side. Okay, we are done with the left side. Now let's move on to the right side. This right side, we are going to have the header underscore image. That is going to have our profile image. That is going to have our profile image. So let's get our image from the images folder, avatar.png. Okay, that is our image. Let's see whether we have it. And we have our image here. The next thing we are going to have here is the header right bg. Okay, and that is going to be this background that we have in the finished project, this background right here. The last thing we are going to have here is the social media links. Okay, so that is going to be the icons that we have for the social media. Let's give this a class of header underscore socials, and the list items are going to have links inside of them. And the first one is going to go to Instagram. Okay, the first one is going to be Instagram, and this is going to open inside a new tab. So I'm going to give it a target of underscore blank. Okay, and that is going to make it to open in a new tab. Let's get the Instagram icon from Iconscout. Let me search Instagram. Paste it. So that is our Instagram. I'm going to duplicate this twice. The next one is going to be Dribble. So let's link to dribble.com. And the icon for this is going to be Dribble. Let's get the icon and then replace this with a Dribble icon. And the last one is going to be, oh, this should be Instagram.com. Okay, Instagram.com. And this is going to be Behance. So Behance.net. Let's get this. Let's replace this. All right, so that is all for this header section. Okay, that is all for this header section. Let's go back to our CSS. Let me actually leave a comment here. This is header, and that is what we are going to style. Let me put this side by side so that we see everything live. All right, so this is what we got from the markup. This is what we got from the markup. Now forget about the overflows that we have here. We are going to correct them when we get to the media queries. But even before that, let me give this a background. That is the nav bar. I'm going to give that a background of color white. Okay, for the meantime, let me give that a background of color white. As I said, we are going to use JavaScript to actually change it. Okay, all right, so now let's style our header. Now let's get our header tag and then give it a height of 100 viewport width. Okay, viewport height, sorry. But you can see some of the content is under this navbar. Okay, so here we are going to push it from the top. I'm going to position this relative and then push it from the top 5 rem. Since we've pushed it down, okay, this is no longer going to fit exactly the height that I want. Okay, so here I'm going to calculate and then subtract this 5%, which is the height of the navbar, from this 100 viewport width, or sorry, viewport height. So I'm going to calculate and then subtract 5 from the 5 rem from the 100 viewport height that we have. okay, and that is going to be the height of this header. Now notice this is not exactly true. That is because this image is too large, and we are going to correct that. So let me display this grid, place items to the center, and that is going to place the direct child of this exactly in the middle, that is horizontally and then vertically. And I'm going to set overflow is going to be hidden. Good. Now let's proceed and get the header container class. I'm going to display this grid, and the grid template columns for this is going to be 40% for the left side and then 60% for the right side. Okay, so we have that. Now let's give this a height of 100%. Let's proceed to style the left side. So let me actually shrink this. All right, so let me target the left, so header left. I'm going to display this grid. Let me make it flex. Okay, let's use flex box here. Align items to the center, and the height, give it a height of 100%. Okay, so flex, align items. You know what, I'm going to wrap these contents, that is the content of the left, I'm going to wrap that inside a div. Let me actually just make this a div. Okay, I don't need to have any class for this because we are not going to target it. So I'm just going to wrap everything inside a div so that we have this centered vertically. Okay, now let's move on from that and then get the h3 here. Let's get the header left and then the h3 inside of it. We are going to give that a color of the primary color and a margin bottom of 0.6 rem. Now let's get the p. Come on, let's get the p, which is this, so that we can give some margin on the top and then the bottom. So header left p, the p is going to have a margin of 1.2 for the top, 0 on the left and right, and then 2 rem for the bottom. Okay, so that we have some space there. Now I'm going to get the right. Let's go to the right side of the header section. So header right, the header right is going to be positioned relative. So the position is going to be relative, and then the height is going to be 100%. Now I'm going to get the socials. So header socials, I'm going to position this. Let me make this larger. Okay, things are not working as they should because I think I misspelled container. So this should be container. Okay, good. Let's go back. Absolute, and it's going to be 0 from the right, and then from the bottom 8 rem. I'm going to display that flex. Okay, the flex direction is going to be column, and the gap between them is going to be 1.2 rem. Let me change the font size to 1.2 rem as well. All right, now let's move on to the links inside of that. So header socials, and then the links, I'm going to change the color for those to be color white, and that is because we are going to have the primary background for the circle that is going to be behind the image. So this should be white, and then we are going to have some hover effects. So let me give a transition to this. Here the header socials a hover is going to change color to color black, but they are not showing because they are white on a white background. Now let me get the header background. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to get the header right bg, and that is going to have a width of 70 rem, a height of 70 rem as well, border radius of 50%, and a background of color primary. Let me position this absolute, and from the right it is going to be negative 30 rem, and from the bottom it is going to be a negative 30 rem as well. Let me target the image. Okay, the image should be on top of this background that we have, so I'm going to target the image. So header, remember we gave the container of the image a class of header image, header underscore image. Let me show you real quick. All right, so this is what we are going to target. So header underscore image, I'm going to give that a width of 82%. Let me position this absolute. From the bottom it is going to be negative 1 rem, and then let's give the z index of 1, okay, so that it sits on top of this. So that is our header section done. Okay, we are done with the header section. Now let's move on to the next section, which is going to be this company section that we have here. Let's quickly move on to that. So let's go to our markup, and I'm going to leave a comment here as well. That is going to be the end of the header section. And this is going to be inside a tag of section. I'm going to give it an ID. This could be a class, but we are just going to use an ID. Now let's give it the container class, which is the general class, and then it is going to have another class of companies container, and inside of it we are going to have some spans to hold the different images for the companies, or the logos for the companies. So the first one is going to be, let's go into our images folder, and it is going to be company1.png. Now let me duplicate this a few times, and the second one is going to be company2.png, and these are the images. Let me quickly show you. So we have company1, which is this, we have 2, 3, and all that. Okay, so that is what we are getting from here. So there's going to be 3, 4, 5, and I think there are 6, so I'm going to get the 6th one. Let me save and then see what we have in the markup. All right, so we have the images. Okay, and that is all for this companies section. That's all for the markup. Let me actually copy this comment and then paste it and change this to companies. Let's target the company ID. Okay, so we give that an ID of companies, or you can do section and then add the ID as well. So here, let me position this relative. Okay, and then from the top I'm going to push it 5 rem and give it a padding of 0. Now let's give it a background of the light color, so color light, and the margin here is going to be 0. All right, now let's target the container. So the company's container, remember we had a class like that. We are going to display grade. The grade template columns here is going to be 1fr 6 times, so we are going to repeat 6 times 1fr, and then I'm going to give a gap between them. Okay, so the gap between the images here, or the spans containing the image, is going to be 2 rem, and I'm going to align items to the center. All right, so that is what we have. Now let's target the span. Okay, so company, we are going to give them a padding of 2.4 rem, and that is all we have to do here in the companies section. All right, so we are done with the companies section here. Now let's move on to the next section, which is going to be this services section. Okay, now let's go to the markup and quickly have the markup for the services section. Now let me quickly show you. This services section is going to have a left side, which is going to have this card, and then we are going to have a right side, which is going to have this H2, and then these cards that we have here. Okay, so let's go back to our markup and we are going to have a section here with an ID of services. Okay, remember we have to give this an ID, because here in the navbar we have to click this so that we can get to the ID with the services. Okay, so that is why we have hashtag services here, and that is going to bring us to this section with the ID of services. All right, so here I'm going to have a div with a class of container again, and then a specific container class for the services section. Now we are going to have the left side, so services __ left, and we are going to have the right side as well. So let me duplicate and change this to right. Now the left side is going to have an H1, which is going to say 7 plus. And then we are going to have an H4, so 7 years working experience. And I'm going to have a paragraph here, which is going to be inside a small tag. Let's do lorem 24. Okay, so just some dummy text inside of that. And now let's get to the right section, or the right side of this services section, and here we are going to have that H2, so that is going to be the content, and we are going to have the cards. Okay, so services cards, and inside we are going to have the individual cards, so that is going to be singular. And for each card we are going to have a span for the icon. Okay, so here we are going to have a span for the icon, and this icon is going to be, let me quickly grab that. Let's search design, and this is going to be the icon. We are going to have an H5. Okay, so we are going to have a link, which in this case is not going to go anywhere, but it's going to say discover more. So that arrow that we copied is going to be here. So let's see, let's check out what we have. All right, so we have this. Okay, now I'm just going to duplicate this. That is the card, this card. I'm going to duplicate that twice and change the content real quick. Okay, all right, so here we have the 3 cards. Okay, so we have the first card, the second card, and then the third card. Okay, so let's check out what we have from this markup. So let's go to CSS and give this some styling. Let me copy this comment, paste, and then change this to services. Okay, this is going to be the services section. All right, so let's grab the services section. Okay, so you can, here too you can do section and then grab the services, that is the ID. Let's give it a margin top of 8 rem, and let's grab the container here, so services __ container, and here we are going to display grade. Okay, now the grade templates columns here is going to be 25% for the left side, auto for the right side. Now the gap between them is going to be 2 rem. Now let's grab the left side, so services, and then the left, let's give that a background of color primary. Let's give that a pattern of 2 rem, a color of color light. So that is for this side. Now let's grab the H1, so services left, and then the H1. I'm going to change the font size to 7 rem. The font weight is going to be 600. And then the color is going to be white. All right, so that is H1. Now let's target this H4. So the H4 services left, and then the H4 line height of 1.4, font weight of 600, a color of color white. All right, now let's move on to the right side. Okay, which is this side. Let's move on to that side. So services, and then the right side, I'm directly going to grab the H2. Okay, so the H2 is going to have a margin bottom. Let's do 2 rem. Now let's grab the card. So services, cards. Okay, the cards holds the different cards that we have. So this cards class, which is plural, is going to be displayed grid. We are going to set the grid templates columns to repeat 3 times 1 FR, and the gap is going to be 2 rem. Okay, good. Now let's target the different cards that we have inside of it. So let me copy and then paste this. So the background first of all is going to change. Let's give that a light, come on, color light. The pattern, let's give that a pattern of 4 rem for the top and bottom, and then 2 rem for the left and right. And we are going to have some hover effect as well. So let me, come on, what is this? We're going to copy this. Let's have some hover effect. So on hover, the background is going to be color primary. Okay, so the cursor here is going to be default, and I want the transition to be smooth. So this is going to be 400 milliseconds is. Okay, so we have a smooth transition there. Now I want everything inside of this to have a white font or a white text. On hover, okay, on hover, I want to grab everything and then change the color to white, and the transition, I'm going to give that a transition as well. It's going to be all 400 milliseconds is. Now let's proceed from here, and then I think I did not do this on camera, or I did not record this, but I gave every span containing the icon, I gave them a class of services card icon. Okay, so each of these spans containing the icons has a class like that. Okay, so we have that class here as well, and then here. Okay, so let's go back to our CSS, and I'm going to grab that. So services card icon, let's change the font size. We are going to increase that to 2 rem. All right, now let's proceed and then give this some more styling. We are going to have some cool hover effects with the links here as well. So first, let me grab the H5s, which are these. I'm going to grab the H5 real quick. So services card, and then the H5. Let me give that a margin 1 rem for the top and bottom, and then 0 for the left and right, so that we have some space. Let me see, I'm going to have some hover effects when the card is hovered. So here I'm going to give that a margin left of 1 rem when the card is hovered. Okay, that is why we have this transition. So okay, good. So we have that, and that is the services section. Let's go to the home. Now let me click, and it brings me to this services section. Now let's head on to the portfolio section. Okay, so now let me quickly show you from the finished project. So this is going to be the portfolio section. Okay, so first we are going to have this head. So this is going to be portfolio head. We're going to have this H3, and then this right side. So this right side is going to have this, and then this link as well. Okay, and we are going to have the different projects that we have as well. Okay, so each of these is going to be the portfolio project. which is going to have the call to action buttons as well. So the call to action buttons are going to be the link for the GitHub of the project and then a live demo as well. So let's quickly go back to the markup and then do this. So here you're going to have the section. Let's give this an ID. We have to give it an ID of portfolio. Okay, now we are going to have the container class and a portfolio container class as well, and we are going to have the portfolio head, as I said, which is going to have the h3. I know this doesn't make sense, but you are going to put your own content there. So let's proceed. Now here we are going to have the portfolio head, right? Okay, we are going to have that, which is going to first have a paragraph tag. Let's do lorem 30 and a link. Okay, so an anchor tag, which is not going to go anywhere, but it is going to say explore more, and we are going to grab that right icon. Okay, and that is it for the head. All right, now we are going to have the portfolio projects. Okay, so let's give this a class of portfolio projects, and each project is going to be inside an article tag. Okay, so let's actually give this a class as well, a class of portfolio projects. Okay, so each portfolio project is first going to have the image of the project, which is going to be the animation that we have, which is going to animate. Okay, we are first going to have the image, which is going to be inside a span. Let's actually give this a class of portfolio __ projects and then image. Okay, and this is going to be the image of the project. So let's go into our images folder, and this is going to be project 1. Let me quickly show you that. So we have project 1, which is this. We have 2, 3, and then 4. Okay, so these are our projects, our project images. So that is project 1. I'm not going to use an alt. All right, so that is the first one. Now we are going to have the call to action buttons, okay, which are going to be, let me call this portfolio __ CTA, okay, which is call to action. The first one is going to be the GitHub. So it is going to go to https GitHub. This should be your actual project link, okay, and this should open in a new tab. We are going to have it open in a new tab. So the target here is going to be blank, and it is going to say GitHub, and this is going to be a button. Okay, so I'm going to give it a class of btn. That is for the GitHub. Now the second one is going to the live demo. So this is going to have a btn primary class as well, and this is going to go to, let's say, I don't know, a live demo of the project, right? So that is for the first project. I'm going to duplicate this a few times, 1, 2, 3, and then change the contents real quick. I'm just going to change the images. So this is going to be project 2, 3, and then 4. Okay, which are these images that we have here? So we have project 1, 2, 3, and then 4. All right, and these are projects we actually built on this channel. Okay, so we built all these websites, so you can check out the tutorials for those. So this is all for this section, which is the portfolio section. Now let's actually see what we have from the markup. Okay, so pretty exhaustive page. Now let's head to the CSS and give this some styling. Okay, so let's go to the CSS. Let me actually copy the comment here. Let me leave a comment. So this is going to be for the portfolio section. Let's quickly style that. We give that an ID of portfolio. So let's give that a background. I'm going to give that a background of color light, which is the light gray. Portfolio. Okay. All right. So we have that light gray. Now let's get the head. Okay. So portfolio __ head. Let's display that flex. Justify content to be spaced between, and then give that a gap of 3 rem. I'm going to get the H3, okay, which is this. I'm going to get that. So let me copy this, paste, and then the H3 of 25%. Okay, that is the width. And then the right side, so let me paste this, and the right, I'm going to give that a width of 49%. Okay, so that is this side. All right, now let's proceed and give this link some styling. Okay, so I'm going to paste, and then the right link, let me give that a margin top of 1 rem. Let me do 1.4 rem. I'm going to display inline block, give it a color of the primary color, and we are going to have some hover effect. So I'm going to use a transition here. Let me do 400 milliseconds ease. I'm just going to shift it. Okay, so the margin left is going to be 1 rem on hover. Good. Now let's target the portfolio projects. Okay, so portfolio __ projects. I'm going to give that a margin top of 4 rem. I'm going to display grid, and the grid template columns is going to be 1FR 1FR, so left and right. The gap is going to be 2 rem. Let me make it 2. 1 is not enough. Okay, so we have 1 1 1 1. Okay, so left and right, left and right. All right, so that is for the portfolio projects. Now let me copy, actually let's target the individual projects. Okay, so remember we gave each of these, they were inside an article tag, right? And then we gave them a class of portfolio project, so they all have a class of that. So I'm going to display flex. The flex direction is going to be column. Align items to, let me actually do space between. I'm going to align item to space between. The gap here is going to be 1 rem. All right, now let's proceed to the images. These images are too long, so I'm going to give them, let's give that a height of 20 rem. Okay, I'm going to display block. The border is going to be 1 rem solid, and then let's use the white color. Now the overflow is going to be hidden. The box shadow, I'm going to have a box shadow 1.6 rem, and then I'm going to use the color primary variance. So 0 on the x-axis, 0 on the y-axis, 1.6 rem for the blur, and then that color. Okay, I'm going to have some hover effect, so the transition here is going to be all 400 milliseconds easy. And since we are repeating this transition, we could actually make it a variable. Okay, and that is the best practice that we should be doing, but let's just ignore that for now and proceed. Now for the hover effect, that's the portfolio project image hover effect. The box shadow is going to be none. Okay, so on hover we are not going to have that box shadow. So here I'm going to proceed to the call to action buttons here. So portfolio CTA, let me display flex, okay, on that so that I can give some space between them. So here I'm going to target the portfolio image and then add a hover effect, and on hover we are going to animate the image. Okay, so the image I'm going to transform, come on, transform, and then translate, and this translate is going to be only on the y-axis, and I'm going to do negative 100%. Okay, let me copy this and get the image, and then from here I'm going to make the transform here 0. Okay, and it just vanishes. Let me add a transition here so that this is smooth. Let me do 5 seconds ease. Okay, so it scrolls to the bottom, but it scrolls past. Okay, I want it to just end at the bottom here. Okay, just like we have in a finished project. It should be perfect like this. So let's go back, and what we have to do here is to subtract. Okay, we should subtract the height of the image container, okay, which is 20 rem, and then the padding as well. Okay, so here we are going to calculate that. So we are going to calculate 100 negative 100% and then subtract 18 rem. Okay, so the reason why it's 18 rem is because the actual image container height is 20 rem, but we are adding some padding here. Okay, so 1 rem for the top and 1 rem for the bottom is going to be 2 rem. So 2 rem minus 20 is going to give us this 18. So we are going to add this 18 to the negative 100%. Okay, and that is going to make sure it scrolls exactly to the bottom. Okay, it doesn't scroll past. All right, and that works for each of these project images. Okay, and I hope that makes sense. All right, so this actually, let me leave a comment here. This is all for the portfolio section. I'm going to leave a comment. Let's see, 18 rem because project image height is 20 rem plus, let me actually do actual plus, okay, 1 rem of border, top and bottom. Actually, I just hope this makes sense, guys. All right, so that is all for this portfolio section. Now let's move on to the next section, which is going to be this testimonial section. Okay, let's move on to the testimonial section. All right, so let's go to our markup. I'm going to leave a comment here as well. So let me copy this comment, paste it down here, and then change this to portfolio. So this is going to be a section with the idea of testimonials, and we are going to have an H2. All right, now we are going to have another paragraph with a class of lead. So P with a class of lead, and this, for this, let me just write some dummy text. Let me say alarm 15. That should be good. And from there we are going to have a testimonial container. Okay, so a div with a class of container, and actually, you know what, let's just do a div with a class of testimonials container. Okay, we are not going to have that general class. Now we are going to have the individual testimonials. Okay, so for this, let me put this inside an article tag, and I'm going to give this a class of testimonial, and the testimonial itself is going to be inside a p tag, and this is the first one. And here we are going to have some details of the person that wrote the testimonial. Okay, so let's put that inside a div with a class of testimonial client. I don't know if this even makes sense, but we are going to have a span which is going to contain the image. So let's first give this a class of avatar. Okay, and that is going to be the image of the person. So that's going to be avatar 1. Let me remove the alt. The first is going to be the name of the person. Okay, and that is going to be inside a b tag to make it bold. The position or the work the person does. Okay, so that is going to be inside a small tag. And that is all for one testimonial. Okay, so this is one testimonial, and we are going to have 4 of these. So let me actually just duplicate this a few times. All right, now I'm not going to change the content for these for now. Okay, for now we are just going to use this duplicates that we have. At the end, we are going to use JavaScript to actually generate these testimonials. Okay, we are going to create a file that holds the testimonials, and then we are going to use JavaScript to generate them. Okay, so let's go to our CSS and then style this. First of all, let's check out what we have from the markup. Okay, so this is what we got from the markup. Now let's style this real quick. Let me copy this comment and then paste it down here. So this is going to be the testimonials section. Let me grab the H2 directly so that I can text align that to the center. Okay. This lead should be text aligned to the center. So let me see. Let me go up. Okay, so we have that. Now let's scroll back down and let's target the container. Okay, so the testimonials container. Let's target that, and then we are going to display grid. Okay, the grid template columns is going to be 1FR, so 50-50, and then the gap is going to be 1.2 rem. All right, now let's target the individual testimonials and let's display them flex. The flex direction is going to be column. The gap is going to be 1.4 rem. The background is going to be color light. Come on, color light. The pattern is going to be 3 rem. The font size is going to be 0.88 rem. Let's give them a border of 1 pixel solid, and then it's going to be transparent for now. All right, so that's what we have. Now let me target the avatar. Okay, so the image that we have, the image container, I'm going to give that a width of 2.2 rem. That is going to be the same for the height, and we are going to have a border radius of 50%, overflow of heading. What is wrong? and we should display this block. Okay, I want to have some hover effects for the testimonial. Okay, so even before the avatar styling, I'm going to have some hover effects, and that is going to have a background. On hover, we are going to have the background to be transparent. The border this time is going to have a color of color primary. Let's give it a text color of the color primary as well. And the box shadow is going to be 0 on the x-axis, 2 rem on the y-axis, 2 rem for the blur, and then the color primary variant. Okay, the z-index is going to be 1, so that it sits on top of everything. All right, so that it casts. Now that is too sharp, so I'm going to have a transition here of all 400 milliseconds is, so that we have a smooth hover effect. Now you can increase these values if you want. For instance, we can increase this to, that is the y-axis, to 3, and I think that looks good. That is okay. All right, I'm going to give this the general container class. Okay, so let's go here and then give this the container class. All right, so we have it. That is the testimonial section. Now this section, which is the client section, that's what we should start last. So let's see, the testimonial client, let's display flex and give that a gap of 1 rem. Okay, let's see, you know what, I'm going to put this inside a p tag. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and replace, just so we can have it on its own line. Okay, all right, now the next section is going to be this footer section. Okay, and after this we are going to move to the media queries and style everything for mobile phones and tablets. So let's quickly move on to the contact section. Let me first comment this. I'm going to copy this comment, come down here, paste, and this is going to be the end of the testimonials section. Now we are moving on to the contact section. Okay, now for the contact section, we are just going to have this left side, we're going to have this h2, this paragraph, and then this socials, just like we had in the header section. And then we are going to have this form. Okay, we are going to have this form. So let's go back to the markup. So this is going to be a section with the ID of contact. Let's have the container class, another for the contact container, and we are going to have the contact left. As I said, the left is going to have that h2, that's going to say let's talk. We are going to have a paragraph, let's do lorem 20. We are going to have the socials. Okay, so let's just go to the header section and then grab the socials that we have here. That is the same thing, so I'm just going to paste and change the class to contact socials. Okay, so that is the same exact thing, and we are going to have the form outside of the contact left. So we are going to have our form tag, the action, we are going to do that soon. After the styling, we are going to make this actually work. So first of all, we are going to have an input, and this is going to be for our name. Okay, So we should have a name of name, since the person or people are going to enter their name here. And let's have a placeholder as well. Okay, so that is for this. Now I'm going to have another input, and this is going to be email. So the name of this is going to be email. Okay, and we are going to understand why we are using these names that we have here. We are going to understand that once we have this working. So the placeholder for this is going to be your email. Next, we are going to have the message itself. Okay, so the message here is going to be a text area. The name here is going to be message. Let me just make this lowercase instead. So this is going to be name, email, and message. Okay, now this is not going to have any ID, but we are going to have rows. Okay, we are not going to have columns as well. We are going to have rows, and this should be 6 rows. 6 rows should be good. I'm going to have a placeholder. This is going to say message, and lastly I'm going to have the button for us to actually submit this. So the type for this is going to be submit. Let's give it a class of btn, and it is going to say send, and I'm going to have that right arrow. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this arrow and then paste that. All right, now let's check out what we have. So we have our fields. Okay, we have everything here. Now let's go to the CSS and install this real quick. Let me grab the comments here, paste, change this to contact. Let me put this side by side. Now let's give that a background of color primary. Let's change the color to color white. That is the text color, and a margin of 0. Okay, good. Now let's target the container. So the contact container, we are going to display that grid. The grid template columns is going to be 1 FR, so 50-50. Let's give a gap of 8 rem and change the font size to 0.9 rem. All right, so we have this. Now let's target the H2. So contact container and then the H2 inside of it. Let's change the color. Let's make that white. So that is white. Now the P. Okay, let me target this paragraph. So let me just copy this, target the P, and I'm going to give that a margin of 1 rem for the top, 0 on the left and right, and then 2 rem for the bottom. Now let me get the socials, contact socials. I'm going to display that flex, give that a gap of 1 rem, and I'm going to get the links inside of it. Okay, so the anchor tags are going to have a color of color white. Font size is going to be 1.3 rem. Increase the font size a little bit, and I'm going to have some hover effects. Okay, so let me have a transition here so that I can have a beautiful hover effect on the anchor tags. So on hover, we are going to change the color to black. All right, so we have that. Now let's move on to the form. Let's style the form. So that is the only form on the page, so let's display that flex. The flex direction is going to be column. Let's give that a gap of 1 rem and a margin top of 2 rem. Okay, now let's target the input that we have. So form input, let me get the text area as well, and I'm going to give that a padding of 1 rem, and that should be all for this contact section. Okay, that should be all. Now I want to have a little footer here. Okay, so let me just copy this and then come back to the markup, just something to serve as a footer. All right, so we have this, and for this copy you can actually just do copy here. Okay, it should give you the same result. So let's come to this CSS, let's come to the CSS and let's style that. So let's get the footer text, align that to the center. Let's see. Okay, so we have our footer. Okay, so text, align that to the center. Let's give that a background of the primary, and then let's give that a padding 1.2 rem for the top and bottom, and 0 for the left and right. Let's change the color to color white, and a border top 1 pixel solid. Come on, this should be border top 1 pixel solid black. Good, so we have that. You know what, I'm actually going to put this inside a small tag. Okay, so I'm going to put that inside a small tag, save, and this should be smaller. Okay, all right, so that is all for the desktop version for this whole website. Okay, so let me quickly, let's see HTML. All right, so we have this, we can actually download our CV. Okay, so I didn't show you that earlier, but we can do that. Everything looks great. We have our beautiful hover effects. We have this animation here, and you can slow this if you want. Okay, so let's go to the top here, that is the portfolio section, and you can slow the animation. Where is it? So you can change this from 5 seconds to, let's say, 20 seconds, and you can see now the animation is much slower. Okay, so you can slow it however you want, but I want it to be a little faster, so let's do 7 seconds. That should be good. That is too fast. Let's do 12 seconds. Okay, so that should be perfect. All right, so this is going to open in a new tab, and it should take you to a live demo of the project. Okay, and this should take you to GitHub, a live demo, the GitHub page for the project. Why didn't that work? GitHub.com, it should be github.com. Okay, let's see, and that is portfolio section. This should take us to github.com. Let me see, so https github.com. all right, let me save, go back to the project, let me refresh. Now let's try. All right, so for people to actually send messages through this form, okay, for them to email us through this form, you're going to use a service called Formspree. So right here, let's go to Formspree.io, and you are going to click get started. Okay, if you don't have an account, you are going to get started, but I have an account, so I'm going to sign in. I've created a lot of forms here. Here we are going to create a new form. Okay, so just click new form, and this is the email that I'm using. Okay, damigator@gmail.com. okay, that is my email. So that is going to be the name of my form, and the name of the project is going to be let's create the form. All right, now implementing form submission using Formspree is very easy. Okay, after creating your account, you should get a verification email. After the verification, come back to this integration page, which is this URL, and then copy this. Okay, copy this link that they give you. Yours should be different, so I have copied mine. Let's go back to our markup, that is our form, and here you should paste that link inside the action of your form. Okay, so I'm going to paste that here, and here we should make sure our method is post. Okay, so let's copy that and then paste that here as well. So the action should be the link that they give you, and then the method should be post. Okay, so you do that, and that is actually all you need to do to implement form submission on your website. So let's quickly go back to our website, let's refresh and then test this out. Okay, so our name here is going to be, so that is my name, very random. That is my email, and let me just leave a random message. Okay, so this is going to be a random message. This is going to be the message that I'm sending, and let's send, and the message has been sent. Okay, the form has been submitted. Now let's go to my, let me go to my email, and as you can see, I have a new message. Okay, I have a new message from my contacts form. Okay, so this is the name of the form. That's the name we gave our form, and inside our form during the submission, this was the name, the email we entered, and then the message, the random text I entered as the message. Okay, so everything is working perfectly. Now, and the last thing I want to teach you about the form submission is preventing spam. Okay, so for you to prevent spam, go to the settings and then make sure Google reCAPTCHA or this reCAPTCHA is checked. So you check that and then come back to your website. Let's check this out. So you just refresh. Let's submit. And now we have to pass this reCAPTCHA. Okay, so both, let's see, let's submit. Let me check again, let me refresh, and as you can see, we have a new message. Okay, so the name, the email, and then the message itself, or the message body. Now notice this. Okay, and these are the name that we gave to the various fields that we have in our form. Okay, all right, so that is how you submit form or implement form submission on your website. Now let's move on to making our website responsive. Let me go back, and now let's make our website responsive. Now for the media queries, we are going to have two of them. Okay, so we are going to have the first one, which is going to be for tablets, and then after that we are going to have one for mobile phones as well. Okay, so this is going to be for tablets. Let me leave a comment here, and then after this we are going to have another one for mobile. Okay, so quickly let's have the media query. Maximum width for tablets, we are going to do 1024 pixels. That is going to be the size of an iPad Pro. So this is the size of an iPad Pro screen. and I want to see the breakpoint for this. Okay, so for the body, I'm just going to change the background to red, just so we can see the breakpoint. All right, so this is exactly the breakpoint. Okay, so this is the breakpoint for our tablet. Okay, so I'm just going to remove this. We have the breakpoint. So we are going to structure this just like we did on the desktop version. Okay, so we are going to start from the nav bar, get to the head or the header section, we get to the companies section, the services section, and on and on and on. So here, even before we get to the navbar section, we are going to start with the general classes, okay, and our header styles. So our h1 for this is going to have a font size of 3.6 rem. Our h2 is going to have a font size of 1.6 rem, and our general container class is going to have a width of the container width medium. Okay, as I said at the beginning of the video, this is going to be for tablets. Okay, so 90% is going to be for tablets. That is going to be the width of the container class. Now the lead class for the paragraphs is going to have a margin top of 0.6 rem. Okay, and that is all for our general classes. Now let's move on to our nav bar. I'm going to leave a comment here. Let's target the nav. That is the nav tag. Let's give that a background of color black. We are going to change the background to black, and let's move on to the nav container. Okay, so nav container, we are going to position that relative, come on, and make the width 100 viewport width. Okay, so it should stretch to what is wrong here? This should be inside of this. Okay, all right, so it's going to stretch to fill the width of the screen. That is 100 viewport width. Now let's target the navbar logo. Let's target the logo inside of the navbar, and we are going to start the h3. Okay, so the h3 is going to have a color of color white and a margin left of 2 rem. Okay, so we have our logo, and let's target the nav _ menu. Let's position this fixed. Let's give it a top of 5 rem, a right of 0, so it's going to be on the right, and then a height of fit content so that it fits exactly the content height, and then a width. Let's give it a fixed width of 18 rem. Okay, we are going to change the flex direction to column. Remember, this is already displayed flex. Okay, so here we are just changing the flex direction to column, give it a gap of 0, and the z index here is going to be 3. Okay, so it is going to be on top of everything on the page. And let's let me actually remove this for now. All right, so that is our nav items right there. Now let's target the LIs inside of the nav items. Let's give those a width of 100%, a height of 5.4 rem. Now let's target the anchor tags, that is the A's inside, or the links inside of the LIs. So nav menu, LI, and then the links. Let's give those a background of the color primary. Come on, the color primary. Let's give those a box shadow of -2 on the x-axis, 2 on the y-axis, 2 rem for the blur, and then an RGBA of 0.2. So black with a 20% transparency. Okay, so it's going to be translucent. Now let's give it a color. Let's change the color to color white, and a width of 100%. Let's give it a height of 5.4 rem. Okay, so that is going to be 100% of its parent, that is the li height. And here we are going to display flex, just so we can align items to the center and justify content to the center as well. I want to bring this on the next line, so justify content to the center. Okay, so we have our nav menu, which is going to be a drop down. Okay, that is how we are going to make it. All right, so I want to have some hover effect for this. Okay, I want to give it some hover effect. So right here, let me just give it a hover effect. I'm going to make the background light, and then the color is going to be black. All right, so we have a cool hover effect. Now we should have a button, okay, so that we can use JavaScript to actually show and hide this drop down or this nav menu. So let's show our buttons here. Remember, we had some buttons before, but we displayed them now, okay, on the desktop. But here we are going to need them, so let's give them some styling. So the buttons inside of the nav bar, we are going to display them inline block and give them a margin right of 1.2 or 1.4 rem rather. They are going to have a transparent background. The color is going to be color white, and they are going to be clickable. We want them to look clickable, so here the cursor is going to be pointer. Okay, so let me save. What is wrong? Let me refresh, and I should have this as a close. Okay, all right, so we have our menu button and then our close button right here, but for now we are only going to need our menu button. Okay, we are only going to need this menu button for the start. Actually, let me increase the font style, so the font size here is going to be 2.4 rem. All right, now we are only going to need this. Okay, that is the menu button. We are going to need that. Now for the start, we are only going to need this menu icon. Okay, that is the hamburger icon. This one is only going to be needed when we want to close this menu. Okay, so let me hide this close menu. So that is button with the ID of close menu btn. Okay, so here I'm going to display that none. All right, now when we come to our website, we don't need this to be showing by default. That is the nav menu here. We don't need that by default, so I'm going to come up here and display this none. Okay, for now, so it's going to look like this for now, and we are going to get to all these. Okay, we are going to style these for the media queries, but for now we are just taking care of the navbar. All right, so we are going to implement the JavaScript. We are going to add some functionality so that we can actually click the burger or the hamburger icon to show our nav menu. So let's link our JavaScript file. Okay, so that is the main.js that we are linking inside the HTML file, and let's head to the JavaScript file just to make sure it is actually linked, and we're just going to do an alert and it is linked. All right, so here what do we want to do? We want to be able to click this, okay, to show the nav menu. Okay, so we are going to get this, that is the icon here or the button here. We are going to get the close button as well and the nav menu itself. Okay, so we have them here. Let me quickly show you again. Let's go up. We have our nav menu, that is a class, and we have our open menu button, that is the hamburger icon, and we have the close button. Okay, so let's get those inside the JavaScript. I'm going to call the hamburger menu btn, and then I'm going to use query selector here, and we have an ID. Okay, that is the ID we gave it. Let me actually stretch this. Let me just duplicate this. Okay, duplicate it twice. So we have the open and then we have the close. Let me call this close menu. Come on. And this is going to be the menu itself. Okay, and that is a class. We give that a class of nav __ menu. All right, so we have those. Now I want to add an event listener on this. Okay, I want to add an event listener on that. So let me actually leave a comment here. Open nav menu, and I'm going to get the menu btn and add an event listener on that. There's going to be a click event, and I'm going to run this anonymous function here. So here the style, come on, display of this menu is going to be block. Okay, when we click on this menu button. All right, so let me save and let's try this. Okay, so I'm going to click and we have our menu right here. Okay, but notice I cannot close it for now, and even our close button is not showing. So when we click this, I want to show the close button. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this. So when we click, I want to get the close btn. This should be close btn. Okay, let me call this close btn. That is our close button. So the close btn, I want to get that and change the display to inline block. Okay, I want to show it, but once we are showing it, then we have to hide this. Okay, we have to hide this hamburger button. Okay, so that is the menu btn, and I'm going to change the style to display of none. Okay, so all right, so let's try that. I click, I show the menu, I show the close button, and then I hide the nav btn, okay, or the hamburger icon. Now we want to be able to close this menu as well, so I'm going to add an event listener on the close button. So let's get the close btn and add an event listener on that. That is going to be a click event as well, and here I'm actually going to write a function for it. Okay, it is not going to be an anonymous function, so I'm just going to call this nav menu. All right, so let me save and let's write that function right here. Let me leave a comment here. I called that close nav. We are using an arrow function here. So here we are basically going to do a similar thing. So here on click of this close button, which is this, on click of that, we want to where is the close button? This close button is going to be displayed none, and this time we are going to show the hamburger button, which is the menu btn. We are going to show that, so that is going to be inline block, and we are going to hide our menu. Okay, so our menu itself is going to be displayed none. Okay, and I hope this makes sense. Now let's try. We click, we have our menu, we have our close button, we click, we have a bug. What is wrong? All right, so we have that functionality. Now I want this to animate. Okay, I want these elements, that is the nav items or the LIs, to animate in like a drop down. So let's go back to our CSS. Let me actually, I want this to be like that. Okay, so after this we want to have an animation. Okay, so I'm going to write an animation here, and this is the animation I'm trying to achieve. Okay, this is what we are going to achieve here. I'm going to write an animation keyframe, and I'm going to call this flip nav item. That is the name of the animation, and here we can do 0% for the start of the animation and then 100% for the end, but I'm just going to do from, and then to. Okay, so it's going to go from this and then end at this. Okay, so it's going to go from a transform, rotate. Okay, so we are going to rotate on the x-axis. We are going to rotate. It is going to start from 90 degrees and it is going to end at 0 degrees. Okay, so this actually 0 degrees rotation on the x-axis, but we want it to actually start from 90 degrees. We can even take this and then put it here, which is going to do basically the same thing. So this is going to serve as the initial rotate or the transform property of the li, but I want to have it inside of the keyframe. Okay, so that is basically what is going to happen. Now let me attach this animation to the elements we want to animate. So the name is flip nav item. That is going to take 2 seconds to animate. That is the duration. The animation timing function is going to be ease, and then we are going to make it forwards. Okay, so let's try, and you see the animation kick in. Okay, okay, so now this doesn't look exactly how we want it to look. Okay, so I'm going to have it at an opacity. The initial is going to be at 0. So let's try. So this is how it's going to be, but I don't want all of them to happen at once. Okay, so here I'm going to target each of the elements. So I'm going to select or get the nth child. I'm going to get the second one. Here we are not going to have any delay. Come on, this shouldn't be here. I'm going to get the second li, which is the services. I'm going to get that, or we can just do animation delay. I just want to put some delay on it, so animation delay, and this is going to delay by 100 milliseconds. Okay, it's going to delay by 100 milliseconds. We are going to do same for the third, the fourth, and then the fifth one. So we have third, fourth, and then fifth. Okay, so let me get the third element, the fourth element, and then the fifth one. So the fourth or the third element here is going to take 200 milliseconds before it animates. So it's going to have a delay of 200 milliseconds before the animation kicks in. The fourth is going to have 300 milliseconds, or it's going to take 300 milliseconds before it animates. And then the last one is going to be I think that is too fast. 150 milliseconds. That should be okay. Let me actually make this 200. So all right, so what is actually happening is the origin of the transform is happening in the middle. So here I'm going to set the transform origin to be at the top. Okay, so now it should happen, it should be exactly, it should be flipping from the top of the elements. Okay, so each of them is going to flip from the top. So let's try that, and it's not happening, or it's not executing exactly how I want it. And one thing we have to add is the perspective. Okay, so the perspective is going to be how far we are looking at the animation, or how far from the screen that we are looking from the animation. So yeah, I'm going to set the perspective, and the perspective should be on the or on the parent of the element that you are animating. So here we are trying to animate the LIs, so the perspective should be on the parent, or on the parent, which is going to be the UL. Okay, so the perspective is going to be 400 pixels. So we are looking, or we are looking at this animation 400 pixels from the screen. I don't know if that makes sense. So let's try. And this is exactly what we are trying to achieve. Okay, this is exactly what we are trying to achieve. All right, so that is for the animation of this navbar. Now let's proceed to make our header responsive. Okay, so let's proceed to our header. Let me copy this comment right here and copy this. And this took longer than I expected, but finally we are done with it now. So let's proceed to the header. I'm going to shrink this so that we see everything. All right, so let's get the header. Okay, that is inside the tag of header. We are going to give that a height of 100%. Remember, it was 100 viewport width on desktop, but now it is 100%. Let's give that a padding of 14 rem 0 0. So 14 for the top, 0 for the left and right, and then 0 for the bottom as well. Now let's get the header container, and we are going to align to the flex end. Okay, so we have that. Now let's give that a height of 100% as well. Let's move on to the header left, the content that we have on the left here. Let's target that, and we are going to give that a margin bottom of 6 rem. Good. Now let's target the header right. That is where the most of the action is going to take place. Header right. We are going to align self to be flex end here as well, and give that a height of 100%. Let's target the header right BG. That is the background that we have here. We are going to change the width of that to 30 rem. Come on, this should be width 30 rem. The height is going to be 30 rem as well, of course, and it is going to be 50% from the right and 50 from the bottom. Okay, and here we are going to transform, then translate. Let's get the image. Okay, so header image, I'm going to give that a bottom of 1 rem, or negative 1 rem rather, and a width of 100%. Good, so we have that. And then let's target the socials. So header socials, a bottom of 4 rem. That should be good. And it doesn't look quite good right now. That is because this is not exactly how let me show you on it, or you let's finish it and I'll show you how it will actually look on a tablet. Okay, so that is the header socials. I'm going to get the links inside of that. So header socials and then the links, I'm going to change the color for those to be color primary. Okay, so let's see how it will actually look on a tablet, and we have it. Okay, it is looking quite good on a tablet, as you can see here. That is the header section we just started. All right, so let's move on to the next section. Let me get the companies let me get the companies container and give them a gap of 0. Okay, I don't want any gap between them. And then I'm going to get the companies container and then the span inside of it. Each image is wrapped inside a span, so I'm going to get that and then change the padding to 1.5 rem. And that is all we have to do for this company section. Let's move on to the next section, which is going to be the services. And here I'm going to grab the services container directly and change the grade templates columns to be 1FR. Okay, there's the services section, and I don't need this. Okay, on tablets I don't need that, so I'm going to get the services left and display that to none. Now let me get the services cards and give them a gap of 1 rem. Good, and that is all we have to do for this services section. Now let's move on to the next section, which is going to be this portfolio section right here. Let me leave a comment. Portfolio. And here I'm going to get this H3. Okay, so portfolio head and then the H3 inside of it. I'm going to change the width for that to be 40%. I'm going to get the right section or the right side of that and give that a rate of auto. Okay, good. So that looks pretty cool. And here I'm going to get the testimonials container, and the grid templates columns for this is going to be 1FR. Okay, and let's see, so they are on top of each other. Now I'm going to change the gap to 1 rem, so that looks pretty good. And as I said, we're actually going to generate these testimonials using JavaScript. Okay, so we are going to get to that in a minute, but let's move on. And then what do I have to do here? Let me go straight to the contact section. Okay, I think the testimonial section looks pretty good, so I'm going to go to the contact section. Let me get let me get the contact container directly, contact container, and I'm just going to change the gap to 2 rem. I'm going to get the socials here, that is the links. I'm going to get the social media links, so contact socials, and then the links inside of that. Font size of 1.7 rem. Okay, yeah, they should be bigger. And we are done with the desktop version of our website, and you can see the animation is working pretty good. Okay, and one thing I want to do here, I think that is quite cool. It doesn't look exactly how I want it to. You know what, let me go to the desktop version of the testimonial section, and I just want to make a little change here. On hover, okay, on hover of the testimonial, we want the border to be primary variant instead. Okay, to be primary instead of the primary variant. And another thing I want to do before we proceed to the mobile version is here in the contact section, I want to make all of these inputs required. Okay, so that people can't send empty fields. So these 3 fields are going to be required. All right, so that is all I need to do, and let's move on to the mobile version. Okay, so let's move on to the mobile media query. Let me leave a comment. This is going to be for phones. Okay, all right, so at media screen, come on, and the maximum width for this is going to let me just do 600 pixels. Okay, some phones these days are pretty big, so that should be good. And here, let me show you the breakpoint for the mobiles. So let me just change the background to red just so we can see the breakpoint. That is mobile right there. Good. All right, let me actually shrink it more. Okay, so that is the breakpoint for mobile. Okay, so here, what do we want to do? First of all, I'm going to change the container class. I'm going to change the width for that to be the variable container width SM. That is for small screens. So for instance, if I think the margins on the left and then the right are too big, I can just come up change this to, let's say, 98%, and it is going to shrink the margin. Okay, so that is why we have these variables. So let's come back down. Section, each section here is going to have a padding of 4, padding of 4 rem for the top and bottom, and then 0 for the left and right. They are going to have a margin as well, 4 rem and then 0. Now the H1s here are going to have a font size of 2.8 rem. The H2s are going to have a font size of 1.4 rem. The H3s are not going to be forgotten, so those are going to have a font size of 1.2 rem. Okay, and then BTN LG, that is going to have a font size of 1 rem. Okay, now the lead class for the paragraphs, those are going to have a width, container width SM. Good. So now we can proceed with our nav. Okay, so let me leave a comment. This is going to be our nav bar. Let me get my buttons. Okay, so what is wrong? Oh, semicolon. Okay, so let me get my buttons here, and inside the nav, these buttons are not going to have any margins. Okay, so I'm going to remove that margin, and I'm going to get the, let me actually change the font size as well. The font size here is going to be 1.7 rem, or let's make it 1.8 or 1.9 rather. That should be good. Now I'm going to get the logo, so nav logo, and then the H3 inside of that. I'm going to give it a margin left of 4 pixels. That is all for nav. Let's get the header. Okay, let me actually leave a comment. The header is going to have a height of 100 viewport height and a padding of 0. Now let's get the container, header container. We are going to change the grid templates columns here to 1FR, and a margin top is going to be 1.4 or 4.4 rem. Okay, and give that a gap, give them a gap. Now let's get the left. So header left, the text align here is going to be center, the margin bottom is going to be 2 rem. Let's see, let's proceed to, let me target the paragraph. Okay, so the header left, and then the paragraph, I'm going to give that a margin 0.5, 1.2. So the header image is going to be positioned relative here, and it is going to be negative 2 rem from the top. Now let's get the background. Let me give some styles to the background. So here I'm just going to change the bottom to 36%. Okay, that is all I have to do. And the last thing for the right, or the header, is going to be the socials. So header socials, I'm going to position this absolute, and it's going to have a Z index of 1 and a bottom. It is going to be 11 rem from the bottom. Let me copy this and get the A, or the links inside of that, and we are going to change the color to color white. Save, and we have our links. All right, so let's proceed. From here we are going to go to the company section. So let me copy this comment. Yeah, I'm going to get the company's container and change the grid templates columns to repeat 3 times 1FR. And down here I'm going to get the container, the company's container, and then the span inside of it. The span holding the images are going to have a height of 5 rem. You're going to display them grid and place items to the center. Okay, this is going to be the services, and we are moving to the the portfolio section, rather portfolio. So here in the portfolio section, I'm going to get the portfolio head, and the flex direction here is going to be column. Okay, it is already displayed flex, so the flex direction is going to be column, and then let's give a gap of 1 rem. Okay, so we have that. Now let's target the h3, which is this. Let's target that. So the head and then the h3 inside of that is a class. So the h3, let's give that a width of container with sm, and we are going to do same for the right side, which is this. So actually, let me just yep. All right, now let's get the projects. Okay, so portfolio projects and the grid templates columns. These are too small, so we are going to make them fit the screen. So the grid templates columns is going to be 1 fr. Changes to testimonials, and let's see, what are we going to do here? Let me just get the testimonial. Okay, that is singular. Each testimonial is going to have a pattern. Let's scroll to that section. A pattern of 1 rem. Okay, so the pattern has changed. Now the last section is going to be the contact section, and here I'm going to get the container. So contact container, I'm going to get that, and then the grid templates columns here is going to be 1 fr. Okay, the gap is going to be 2 rem, and we are going to text align to the center. All right, now let's get the socials. Okay, let's put that in the middle as well. So contact socials, we're going to justify content to be center. Okay, it is already displayed flex, so we can just justify content to the center. And I think we are done with the mobile version of this website. Okay, now this is looking pretty good. And everything is looking great. Okay, everything is working great. Let's see, our animation is not working quite as we expect or want it to. So let's see, the initial opacity, I'm going to bring that to the actual element, which is the li. So it is going to have an initial opacity of 0. That is exactly what we want it to look like. All right, now what we want to do is to add some more functionalities to the website. For instance, if I click this services section, this should close. Okay, this nav menu should automatically close. So let's go to JavaScript. So what I'm going to do is get all the links inside of the menu. Okay, and I'm going to add an event list now on that, and on click we are going to run this close nav. Okay, this close nav function. All right, so let me leave a comment here. Let's say close nav menu when items or when menu items are clicked. Okay, that is exactly what we are going to do. So let's see, and that should only happen on mobile. Okay, that should only happen on mobile. So here we are going to say if window inner width is less than 1024. Okay, so remember media queries for tablets, and this starts from the tablets. Okay, so that is the width we set for our tablets media queries. So anything below that, that is for tablets and then mobile phones, we are going to get the links inside the menu. Okay, so document.query selector all, and we are going to get the nav menu li and then the links inside of it. Okay, and here we are going to run a for each loop on that, and for each item we are going to run this function. Okay, so for each item we are going to run this function. Let me get the item. For each item we are going to add an event listener, which is going to be a click event, and call the function here, okay, which is the close now. Okay, so let's quickly try that. So when we click or we go to any of these pages, we should have this close. Okay, so let me click and it closes. Okay, it takes us to the section that we want and it closes. All right, let's go to the contact section, which is looking great. We have our animation and everything is working great. Okay, now another thing we want to do is to let's go to our full screen. Okay, let's go to our desktop screen, and as I said, we want this to, just like in the finished project, okay, we want this to change background. That's the navbar. We want a different background when we scroll. Okay, so by default it is going to have a transparent background, but on scroll we are going to have a change style. Okay, so let's go to our JavaScript again. All right, so window, and I'm going to add an event listener on the window, which is going to be a scroll event this time, and then we are going to run this anonymous function. So I'm going to get the navbar, and we are going to add a class list. Okay, we are going to actually toggle a class list, and I'm going to call this class window scroll. Okay, we don't have this class yet. We are going to create that class soon. And immediately I scroll, okay, I want to have this style which we are going to create. All right, so you can make it actually 100 pixels. That means when we scroll 100 pixels, then the styles that we are going to create inside of the CSS actually takes effect. Okay, but I want to have that style immediately we scroll, that is 0. Okay, so that is 0 pixels. So immediately we scroll, we should have that style. Now let's go up to the navbar, and here I'm going to remove this background. Okay, that is the white background. I'm going to remove that, and we are going to have that class that we want to add. And here the styles for that is going to be the background to be black, that is the color black, and the box shadow, we want a box shadow as well. 0 on the x-axis, 1.5 rem on the y-axis, 1.5 rem for the blur, and then an RGBA. All right, so let's scroll and we have it. Okay, but notice all the nav items and then the logo disappear. Okay, that is because they are black on a black background. So we have to change the styles for those as well. So inside this we are going to get all the links and change the color for those to be color white. So on scroll we are going to have the colors for the links change to color white. Now let's get the H3 for the logo. So Windows scroll, nav logo, and then the H3, and that is going to have a color white as well. All right, so let's see, and everything is working great. Let me leave a comment here. Okay, and I can remove this. All right, now the last thing that I want to do, we actually done, but I want this to be generated using JavaScript. Okay, so I'm going to create a new JavaScript file. I'm going to call this testimonials. .js. That is going to be a JavaScript file, and I'm going to paste some testimonials that we have. Okay, it's an array of objects, and each object is a testimonial. So we have the quotes of the testimonial, the avatar, that is the image of the person, the name of the person, and then the title. Okay, and there are 4 testimonials here, but notice the quote is the same. Okay, the quote is the same except for the image, the name, and then the title. So those are going to change. Those are going to be different. Now let's go to our JavaScript. Let's actually link this file inside of our markup, and that should come before our main.js file. Okay, so here I'm just going to duplicate this and then link our new testimonial.js file. Okay, all right, so that is linked. Make sure it comes before the main.js. Okay, all right, so let's go back to our main.js, and here I'm going to add a load event on the window object. Okay, so I'm going to add a load event. That means when the page loads, I want to run a function here. Okay, so this function is going to be called fetch testimonials. That is the function that I'm going to run, and I don't have this function yet, so we have to create it. Okay, so this function, all right, so here let's create the function. So fetch testimonials, that is the function. There's going to be an arrow function, and I want to get the testimonials container in the JavaScript, in the markup. Okay, so we have some testimonials here. These are actually going to be removed, but for now I want to get this class. Okay, that is a container class. That is where we are going to append the testimonials that we are going to generate or get from this. So actually, you know what, let me remove all the testimonials so that you see that we are actually going to get them from the file we just created. So let me remove all of them and leave one for now. Let me leave only one. So let me remove this one as well. Okay, so inside the page you can see we have only one testimonial. Okay, all right, so let's go back, and here I'm going to get the container. So testimonials container, and that is going to be, I'm going to use query selector here, and that is the testimonials container class I just copied, and I'm going to set the inner HTML to be nothing. Okay, I don't want anything inside of it. So when I save, let me show you. So when I save this, we should have nothing inside the testimonial container. All right, so as I said, we are going to generate our own testimonials using the array that we have here. We are going to get these and then print it inside of the testimonials container. So I'm going to loop through the array, okay, and print the testimonials. Okay, so I'm going, remember the array is called testimonials. Okay, so here I'm going to run a for each loop on that and call each of them testimonial. So each of the objects inside of it is going to be testimonial, is going to be called testimonial, and I'm going to run this function on it. So we are going to create a new element, and that is going to be the article create element. That is going to be the article tag that we are going to, or the article element that we are going to create, and we are going to add that class, which is the, remember each article has a class of testimonial. Okay, so we are just going to use this as a boilerplate or as a template to actually create our testimonial, since we based on this to style them. Okay, we style them based on this. So we are going to add that class. So this new testimonial elements that we just created, we are going to give that a class of testimonial. And the inner HTML for this, is going to be, so let me just copy from here to here. We are using this as a template, so don't worry, you are going to understand soon. So this content we are going to get from the array. Okay, so here we are going to get the testimonial, which is this. We are going to get the, I think, the code. Okay, we are going to get the code. Okay, so we are going to get the code and the avatar. Okay, the image here, we are going to get that as well. This is going to be the different image links that we have here. Okay, so inside the images folder we have avatar 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so those are what we are going to be getting from here. Okay, so we have avatar 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so those are the name of the images. So let's get those dynamically. So that is testimonial, and then I think that is the avatar that we are getting. Okay, so let's get the avatar, and we are going to get the name as well. So let me actually just copy this and then paste it here, and here we are going to get the name, and lastly we are going to get a title. Okay, so let me paste, and we are going to get a title. All right, so we have the name and then the title, so we are getting those dynamically. Okay, all right, now what do we have to do to actually show this? So we have to append what we just got. Okay, the elements we just created, which is the article tag that we just created, we are going to append that to the testimonials container. Okay, we are going to append that to the testimonial container. So let's get the testimonials container and append the elements we just created, which is a new testimonial. This should be inside the loop. Okay, so let me save. Oh, we forgot an equal sign here. Okay, all right, now let's save, and we have our testimonials. Okay, from the testimonials folder here. Okay, from this array, so we can close this, and as you can see we have our dynamic testimonials. So I'm going to go back and then actually comment this out. Okay, actually I can even delete it, but I want it to be inside the code for you guys. All right, so that is it. I think we are basically done with this whole project. Let me refresh the page and then let's see what we've created. So we have our navbar working good. We can download our CV. We have our header. Everything is looking great. We have the animation here. Okay, we can check out the live demo or the GitHub for the project. We have our testimonial section. This is looking great on mobile as well. All right, so this is all for the whole project. Okay, that's all for the project. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, and I will see you next time.